Hi. When my papa can't remember my name, he calls me Spitfire. Ever since I learned how to speak, I haven't been able to stop. Mr. Benson, my mom, and my classmates might tell you that I talk too quickly, too often, and too much. An oversharer by nature and a debate champion at heart, I've been told affectionately and less than kindly that I'm a chatterbox, a know-it-all, a distraction for other students, and a pleasure to have in class. My mind is like an internet browser. 17 tabs are open, 4 of them are frozen, and I don't know where the music is coming from. So I'm very grateful to you all for joining me today for your Valentine's Day in the Frank D. Ashburn Chapel, but you might want to get comfortable because we could be here for a while. So let's dive right in. It was early January here at the Brooks School at one of those perfect, class doesn't start till 9, no mud on the field, bright and big and bold and brave winter term mornings. The sky was blue, the car was clean, and Marina was finally off of her JOL. All was right in the world, and a trip to Dunk's for drinks and donuts was on the agenda. In her silver Honda Civic, which we've named Sylvia, with a C, our wrists crackled as we danced with our hands to Walkin' on Sunshine and Mr. Brightside, and our voices cracked in harmony when we belted Brandi Carlile key changes and Billy Joel lyrics we knew by heart. We might be laughing a bit too loud, but that never hurt no one. And I thought of the way the hallways in Out West are always filled with peals of laughter and blasting music, and my heart was overflowing with the kind of happiness that my 15-year-old self had never imagined. See, I started freshman year with a stomach ache, and not that usual first day of school, butterflies in your stomach type of jitters either. It was more of a crippling pain that started in the middle of orientation and remained for the rest of fall. Between multiple procedures, doctor's office visits, the Jewish holidays, and a really incredible Ed Sheeran concert at Gillette Stadium, it wasn't until the end of October that I actually slept in my dorm room for 7 consecutive nights. Sorry, Alyssa. Needless to say, I missed out on every tell the class something interesting about yourself moment, and it showed. Most people in my grade either didn't know me, thought that I was Wesley's twin sister, or assumed I was a day student. I didn't know them either. At soccer, I accidentally told a faculty kid that I didn't like her parent as a teacher. At my first seated dinner, while Katie watched in secondhand embarrassment, I told Mr. Burbank that I hated math, not knowing that he was, at the time, the head of the math department. And the first time I heard Marina tell a joke about being deaf, I just thought she was a horrible person. On a Tuesday night around Halloween, I came to study hall for the first time in weeks. And across from my seat in the front row, I saw Owen Borick and naturally assumed he was the senior prefect on duty. When I asked him if I could go to the bathroom, he said, I guess. In the few days of school I attended, though, I managed to meet my best friend, my Brooks sweatpants. $20 on the sale rack in the school store, a men's small with pockets that felt like they went down to my knees. We've always been there for each other. And that fateful Tuesday evening at study hall during the 15-minute break, Nick Lee came up to me and pointed out that, OMG, we were twinning. It was a big moment for me. Felt a little less invisible. So the next day I wore them again. During the 15-minute break, we shared a laugh. We were matching again. And then the third night came around, Thursday night, and during the break, Nick looked me up and down and said, you know, you should probably wash those. With every mortifying mix-up, I retreated further into my shell. I was shy for the first time in my life, and it terrified me. I spent lunches holed up in my room, eating individually packaged Entenmann's pound cakes, and feared that I'd have no one to sit with. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have. I was so afraid of people judging me that I had reflexively began to judge everyone else, and rather than choose to fight or flight, I'd become quiet and angry and lonely and mean. Marina and I refer to this phenomenon in nature now as the windmill of knives, when a person in emotional turmoil takes out their frustrations on the people around them without any rhyme or reason. I've always believed that pick your battles is something that mom and dads make up so we stop fighting them on everything, but back then I saw everything as a battle. I was ruthless and unforgiving, know-it-all feminist buzzkill with no account for human error of any kind and certainly no acknowledgement of my own shortcomings, and also no friends. By November, I could count them on one hand, and I blamed everyone but myself. But the musical had been my refuge from it. Into the Woods brought me James Kim and Marina Heidekevich, the kind of best friends who bring your favorite candy to the health center when you have strep and tell you honestly that your favorite movies are terrible. In May, we attended a community conversation together in the Dulcimer Room concerning censorship, diversity, and sensitivity as a summary of the school year. Someone mentioned a painting of a swastika that had been put up in the Student Center during my minor medical emergency in the fall, and all eyes turned to me. The evolutionary responses kicked in. My palms began to sweat, my heartbeat rose. I crossed and uncrossed my ankles and fidgeted with my thumbs as I said something about the difference between intent and impact and the danger of symbols. "Are you unsafe or are you just offended?" I was asked. "The evils of prep school are nothing compared to the evils of the world. The Nazis aren't marching down Main Street." And of course, at the moment I needed it, the windmill of knives was missing in action. At the crossroads of fight and flight, my parasympathetic response was to freeze. I burst into tears on the spot and brought the conversation to a screeching, awkward halt. This was the most significant in a long series of events that had me believing that no one would defend the Jewish kid besides the Jewish kid. And it's important to note that this was not the case. In the past 3 years, Brooks has proven itself time and time again to be a community of individuals who rally around one another. And I've never known Miss Chaniel or Mr. Griffith or Mrs. H to lack a box of tissues and a game plan on how to move forward with grace. Still, those words, "Are you offended or are you unsafe?" cast a dark shadow over my actions, decisions, and emotions going forward. Sophomore year rolled around, and somewhere deep in my chest, near the spot where butterflies live, I felt the kind of tiredness that I don't know how to write about. It's the kind you can't fight, like when you want to get out of bed or see the end of a movie, but you just can't bring yourself to. And I had no idea where to run from a numbness like this, or how to find space on the couch next to the weight of it, or how to stop feeling homesick for a home that I didn't have. But I was aching to return to Mr. Griffith's vocal warm-ups in the stage of the barn. When I learned the musical that year was set to be Cabaret, though, my heart sunk to the pit of my stomach. A musical set in Berlin during the rise of the Nazi Party, written by and performed for Jewish people traditionally, Cabaret pulled the rug right out from under me. And for the second time in my Brooks career, I was at a loss for words. I felt like I'd been screaming into the void about the dangers of symbols. And after all, as long as the Nazis weren't marching down Main Street, I had no reason to be afraid. The windmill of knives then came back with a vengeance. The searing hurt I felt left me frustrated at everything around me. Like when I was waiting anxiously to sub in for a third soccer game against some talented middle school girls from Thayer, and I got a red card for screaming at JD to kick her in the shins. When a student in my grade posted a derogatory photo of me eating lunch on his Snapchat story, I had a panic attack for the first time in my life, and when Marina didn't know what was going on, I slapped her in the face. And even though I knew it was wrong, it was months before I made amends because it was so much easier to avoid the dining hall, dances, the people and things I feared, when there was nobody concerned with whether I was eating or dancing or having fun on the weekends. I switched to community service to get off campus more and spent my free time filling out transfer applications to leave Brooks altogether. To paraphrase Audre Lorde, self-care is about self-preservation, not self-indulgence, and I didn't have any fight left in me. They say that everything you want is on the other side of fear, and all I wanted then was to stop feeling like I was getting kicked in the gut. And then the summer after sophomore year, I went to the University of Iowa Young Writers Studio, and for 2 whole weeks, I had nothing to be angry about. The feeling was fresh and new in my mouth like ice water, and I never wanted to leave. On my last night at camp in Iowa City in June of 2017, the same classmate who had posted a photo of me on Snapchat targeted me in anti-Semitic hate speech online, and I couldn't even bring myself to cry about it. My anger felt misplaced and meaningless. After 2 years of my bruises being poked and prodded at, the words offended and unsafe were empty and inadequate. I had cultivated my misery to wear like a turtle shell, and I wouldn't let anything ruin my last night in Iowa City, the Disneyland of the Midwest. So I turned off my phone, exhausted, and kept it tucked away in my bag for the entirety of the next day. I spent the next 25 hours or so hopping planes from Iowa to Boston to Israel, and exhausted, I plugged my phone into a wall socket at the airport in Tel Aviv and felt the floor rise up to meet me, when a text from a friend over WhatsApp revealed that the student wouldn't be returning to Brooks in the fall. And for the first time, I felt like Brooks as a whole definitively had my back. Upon returning to school for my junior year, my first assignment was to create a personal motto to share in Miss Holmes's English class, and mine was "Listen before you speak." But what I didn't know then was that my junior year, though technically my third at Brooks, would be my first at a school I felt like I could call my own. It wasn't that my success as an upperclassman was contingent on a classmate's failure to thrive here, but it was rooted in the knowledge that Brooks had announced my place in the family of things. And as my fortress of defense mechanisms and windmill of knives dissipated, I slowly began allowing myself to rediscover a love for Brooks that I hadn't felt since revisit day. Leaning and drawling and juvenile and triumphant. On the JV soccer field last fall, I made new friends and kept the old, and watched the sunset over the lake behind my dorm in color for the first time. I felt the urge to cartwheel on water, to be unafraid to be softer and kinder and brighter and just more. And it was a renaissance in which happiness hit me like a bullet in the back, and all the girls would ask me to dance and the boys wouldn't kill me for it. I learned that the only things of importance in this life are being funny and being kind, and that sometimes you just need a milkshake to mourn the loss of your GPA, and that it's more than okay to write badly and draw badly and sing badly. I moved up to the JV soccer team and became both its worst player and biggest fan. At Room X, Marina and I play beginner guitar chords and sing cover songs and laugh every time I forget the words, which is every time. The bottom line is that if you love it and it hurts no one, then it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it. But I also learned that nobody thinks about it. I can sing my heart out to Seek Ye First and wear a Christmas tree costume to the Toys for Tots dance without feeling like I've compromised my identity. I can stand on a table at the club fair and give full-throated endorsements of the JSO without giving ammunition to any bullies. In opening chapel, Mr. Packard remarked that the instinct towards meanness is not tolerated here, and I can now tell you with assurance that it's true, because I've sought and fought and found my place here in the family of things as the obnoxiously Jewish girl with the writing on her legs and the glitter on her face and the backpack filled with sticky notes. We can't acknowledge how far we've come without knowing where we came from, but the glory of being a teenager is impressing someone and then embarrassing yourself within the same sentence. It's how I wore a diaper and wings in Xanadu last year and leapt across the stage without fear. It's why I rolled down Main Street on my Heelys last winter on the way to detention, absolutely ate it in front of the frick, was so late to detention that I got another detention or wore them again the next day. It's how I'm able to stand up here and tell you that 3 years ago, during my first dish crew, David sprayed me with the hose as a joke and I punched him in the spine. I've never been good at talking to boys. Like all of us, Brooks is a place that is living, breathing, growing, and changing, and I'm proud to say that in the past 4 years, I've gotten the chance to grow and change with it. I'm proud to be a part of a community that intends to show empathy and understanding in all things. And I still believe in picking every battle, but I know now that at Brooks, we are not at war. In order to give each other the most meaningful educational experiences we'll have in our lives, we need to acknowledge that we don't know everything and we have to be willing to learn more. To know that being the smartest in the room means that you're in the wrong room, and that community conversations are an opportunity to learn from each other, not debates. And all that being said, I don't want to sugarcoat how hard it is to be 15. Sometimes what's meant to break you makes you brave, and other times it just breaks you. The good news is that the world will keep on turning. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, I promise you aren't alone. I promise that you don't have to go to an airport in Israel or the cornfields of Iowa to find your people. So this is my Brooks story. Messy, convoluted, and filled to the brim with too much information. An odyssey in which I learned to laugh at myself, and I'm still learning how to say I'm sorry. It's an ode to playing spike ball in the spring and classic rock songs in Room X all year round. A dedication of the poems on my legs to the good, the bad, and the bloody. A document of my endless gratitude to Miss Chaniel for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself any longer. My sincerest apologies to the 20-odd faculty members who have seen me ugly cry. My condolences to Janelle and Dusty for the years I've taken off of their lives and the unconditional love and appreciation I have for the Heidekevich family. This is my love letter to new beginnings and new arriving and the overwhelming evidence that you do not have to be good. My elegy for being a captain and a bench warmer at the same time. My panegyric on dancing until your bones clatter. So happy Valentine's Day, Brooks, and what a prize you are. What a lucky sack of stars.